Do you need me to do any kind of particular walk, like a swagger? That's my swagger, that's me.
The most confident person in front of the camera.
So my name's Nguyen. I'm a sustainability strategist, researcher and writer. I am from the UK, but I'm also half Vietnamese as well.
Hello everybody, my name is Laura Ann Moore and I am a financial coach and financial wellbeing speaker, educator and personal finance content creator, if there wasn't a longer title.
What's the most expensive thing that you own?
Now, I'm also not like part of the homeowner gang at all, so not a house.
So the most expensive thing I own, I am not a homeowner. I've got commitment issues, so that's not for me. I would say it is a recent purchase actually, which is my Celine handbag.
I actually don't own that many expensive things. Like, I don't really have anything designer. I think it's either my laptop or my camera. But then technically my business own them. So for me, maybe like,
I have wanted it for a very long time and I've eyed it up for years and I've saved and I've worked super hard and I was like, I'm gonna get that big girl thing. So I purchased it off Vestiaire Collective as well. So it's like secondhand, super sustainable, and it just sits in its dust bag and I just watch it. And actually it's an investment as well because the price of Celine handbags will only ever increase.
Probably a piece of furniture in my room, which is so boring.
See, furniture is way more expensive than people realise.
Yeah, but then usually I go like Gumtree or like secondhand, so it's probably not even that expensive anyway.
Thrifting the furniture.
Thrifty, yeah, secondhand, babe.
Do you think money can buy you happiness?
No, not at all. I think money can buy you financial freedom, which is fantastic. I mean, it takes the stress off. You can sleep better at night.
I don't think that money buys happiness, but I do think that it buys a level of like security and stability for somebody to then be happy. So like a baseline.
You can go into Waitrose and buy those really expensive artichokes and you can afford to go on holidays. But I think that often we see super rich people, they have all this money in the world, but they feel super hollow and super empty. So I would say no, I don't think it can.
What are your money vices, or do you have any guilty spending pleasures?
So I am, because I'm Asian, I just think that I am super disciplined and I wouldn't say that I go wild on anything. Also, I'm trying to live more minimally and more sustainably, so I don't splurge, like I don't buy unnecessary clothes and things like that. But perhaps one thing that I do not really spare expense on is travel. So
the thing I spend probably most of my money on is food. Like, I will drop, I don't care how much I spend on food, whether that's like eating out, like going to fancy restaurants, or buying food from like, I don't know, a farm or something, like something organic. Like, I have no issue spending loads of money on that. That's where probably most of my money goes.
If I want to go away and stay in a nice Airbnb, I won't stay in a super luxury hotel, but I want to pick like a lovely Airbnb with a gorgeous view and like a really nice bedroom. So maybe that would be my thing.
When I'm full, I'm still buying more food. Yeah, whereas like clothes and stuff, or like material items like that, I'm not really that into. I will really second guess like spending like 40 quid on a top. But if you want me to drop 40 quid on some sushi, game on.
What do you think are like the first things people can do if they wanted to manage their money more sustainably?
I think I've got to a point now with my money where I manage it in a way that allows me to not feel guilty about the things I'm spending on.
I mean, there are so many ways that we can manage our money more sustainably, and I think that's what makes it so exciting. I think the first thing is realizing, firstly, the impact that our money can have literally whilst we sleep. But immediately, the biggest way that you can actually reduce your individual carbon footprint is through one of your biggest investments, which you may not realize, which is your pension. So definitely looking at your pension provider, talking to the company that you work for, your employers, figuring out where exactly is your pension going, because you may be trying to buy better food, shop less, and align your spending to your values, but what you may not realize is your pension is probably funding weapons or fossil fuels or, I don't know, tobacco, alcohol, and things that you may not necessarily agree with. So your pension is one thing, and then I think also looking at your bank account is another one, and trying to go with a bank account that's slightly more ethical, so whether that is like Triodos or some of the more new trendy ones, whether that's like Starling, Monzo, things like that, because HSBC or Barclays are some of the European banks that fund fossil fuel projects the most, so that's also something to consider. And then the last thing is investing, like thinking about, you know, like beyond crypto and things like that, like what kind of companies you want to spend your money on. So do you want to encourage innovation in like clean tech? Are you looking at like putting a little bit of money into like hydrogen companies? All of that, thoughts to consider. And you can also work with like green financial advisors as well.
Have you ever been in any debt?
No,
Never?
never ever.
Wow.
Never ever. I grew up in a family that did have a lot of debt, and I was so aware of it all the time. It was a constant conversation just about debt and, you know, store cards and credit cards. And I've had a lot of like family members and like friends around me. And because I genuinely started saving so young, I never needed to take debt out, like take credit out. And it's not that I was scared of it, but I very quickly understood how it could mess up your finances. But also I didn't go to university, so I don't have any student debt or anything like that. So I didn't have any grants. So kind of like started off on a better foot, because when I was 18, I got straight into a job.
I'm still in debt, which is my student debt.
A lot of my friends are the same. So I'm like, ha ha. No, it's hard, I think, especially like if you went to like university in London and stuff like that. But yeah, I just got straight into working and saving my dollar.
I honestly don't even know what the sum is now with interest. It's well over 40k. I get these letters sometimes from student loan company. I'm like, what's the point? Like, what's the point now? But if we were to exclude student debt, no, I haven't. I mean, I had an overdraft when I was at university, which I obviously ate into, but otherwise, no.
But what's the best thing that you've bought recently?
The best thing that I've bought recently.
Because I work for myself, I would say that it is the kind of training programs that I go on. So last year I invested in doing a sustainable supply chain management course, which was super exciting. This year I'm paying for myself to do like my CFA ESG certificate. So I think that's like a self-inflicted kind of pain, but like a good one, which will pay dividends in the future.
First of all, probably my money gun. The money gun. It was about 50 quid, but probably the best thing that I've bought.
You're not getting that one back, by the way.
No, yeah, I am. It's mine. It's got my name on it. I might get my name carved into it, actually.
Other things, I think the cumulative impact of like self-care. So whether that is like me going to my really nice hot yoga studio, treating myself to holidays, going to lovely restaurants, just all the cumulative things like that.
Or I bought myself a facial, and that was worth every penny.
Is that a regular thing?
No, it's the first facial I've ever had. I was like, oh my God, why don't I do this more often? It was about £150 for an hour, and I loved every second of it. I was in it like, yes. But technically, I guess I used money from like, you know, the cashback sites.
Yeah.
So it was my money technically, but probably the best thing I bought.
What's the dumbest thing that you've spent money on?
I honestly would say it was just in my youth, partying far too much, drinking far too much, and just not being responsible with my money at all. I think I've had a job since I was 16, and everything I earned when I was younger, I definitely spent on going out or buying like a sequin top to wear on the night out. So I honestly think it would be that. And then I guess now I've just been caught out with a few like subscriptions, which are like a small amount of money, but I've forgotten to, you know, turn them off, and so that accumulates as well. That's like £40 of like 4 different subscriptions that I haven't really thought about. So something like that as well. It's not great.
There really isn't a lot. Do you know what? I'm quite risk averse with my money, which has its own problems. So there's not really, I take a really long time to make big purchases. I bought a guitar and haven't learned to play guitar, but I bought it at 18, so I've had it for 10 years, and it's been to every house with me, and it just sits in the corner, and every now and again I look at it every couple of months and I go, I'm gonna play you one day. And it never comes out. The only time it's come out is when I filmed a bit of content recently, and I was like, oh my God, I need a guitar. So I just sat with it, didn't know what I was doing. I was like,
What's the best piece of financial advice?
Life is short, spend the money. Because I think really you can sit there with like hundreds of thousands of pounds in your bank account, but we don't, I mean, especially with what's going on with the climate crisis, we actually don't know what our world will look like in 2050. So what's the point in me like living like a bit of a stringent, like unfrivolous lifestyle now, and then looking in 2050 when the world's on fire and thinking like, I should have bought that dress, or like I should have gone on that holiday. It's just like, you don't want to look back and regret things. So life's short, spend the money.
I like that.
The best, I guess there's kind of two. One is like more towards the emotional, and one is like more towards the practical, because I think they're both really important. The practical one is paying yourself first. It's probably such a common one when like people talk about money, but putting money aside as soon as you get paid. That's how I managed to save 15 grand, because I always was choosing my savings first. But the emotional side, I think, is like just acknowledging that we have a relationship with money. And I mean, I guess it wasn't a bit of advice, it was more just something I learnt myself, and then went down the route of like coaching, and I was like, oh my God, I can't believe how emotional money is, and B, how people don't always make that connection. Like they're always like, oh, it's about spreadsheets and numbers, and I'm like, no, it's not. It's not just about that. So I think maybe just the acknowledgement that our emotions have such a big part to play in how we handle our money, and that it's not like set in stone. We can make changes.
That's really cool. What's the best thing that you've invested in recently?
The best thing I've invested in is myself. Is me. I've like spent quite a bit of money on like business coaching and business skills and like upskilling myself, which I think is so important, because there's so much advice out there about like invest in the stock market, invest in property, and that's great. But if you're starting with a small amount, sometimes it's better off to start using that amount of money to invest in yourself and to upskill. And then when you're more skilled, you can then get a higher paid job, you can run your own business, and then you're gonna have more money to invest. So yeah, I think investing in myself over this last sort of year has been the best decision I've made.
More, what's the worst investment that you've made?
I don't invest, so I don't know if this is like...
Or have you had any purchases that you've made which you've instantly regretted?
Honestly, no. I'm just not that person. Like, I'm quite good. Like, I am really, really disciplined.
I love that for you, and I'm so jealous.
Also, I don't drink, so like, I don't get home after a few like swift ones from my friends and go on Amazon and think like, oh, this would be a really good idea to purchase that. Like, I just don't. We've all made those drunk purchases, and we're like, why did I do that?
1 a.m.
Yeah.
Is there anything that you've been reading recently that you're really loving, or is there anything that you listen to that you'd like to share, money or otherwise?
Atomic Habits by James Clear. I've read it already, and I'm rereading it because I just think it's an amazing book, and it helps me with like money habits, it helps me with general life habits. So that for me is like top tier book. I also read a book called Deep Work by Cal Newport, I think it was, which really helped me in a business capacity, because I am so bad, like going to my laptop, being like dee, and then just constantly picking up my phone and realising how, and I'll be like, why have I got nothing done today? So like just the acknowledgement of how you need to like block out time. That's a banging book, especially if you're like a massive procrastinator, like I am. And any I listen to a lot of spiritual podcasts, like anything to do with like energy and the universe. Like I really believe in all of that.
Yeah, I always set myself like a goal each year of how many books I'm gonna read, and I think readers are leaders. There's a few books by someone called Susan Cain, which is all about, there's called Quiet, and then she has a few which is all about the power of being introverted and why the world needs to look at introverts differently. And she also came out with a book this year called Bittersweet, which is about like life isn't always basically like life is bittersweet, but you have to enjoy it anyway. So that's really good. Business-wise, things like traction, I always think that, I told you about Ryan Holiday's books, I love them, especially Ego is the Enemy. I think that's super important, and stillness is the key as well, because even when we're super busy working, we all need to take a pause and a moment to just stop and consider. I think just when it comes to money, like be kind to yourself. Like, okay, you may have made like a financial mistake, like you may have made a bad investment which didn't turn out the way you wanted to, or maybe you overspent on your monthly budget, but it's okay, like you'll get it back. Like be kind to yourself, and just remember that your money can really make an impact on the world.
I love that. Thank you so much for joining us.
You're welcome.
Thank you for having me. Okay, this is gonna be the best.
This is why you bought this.
Yeah, this is
will
purely.
make it really well.
Yeah, this is the second time I've used it, so the excitement levels are high, guys. Are you ready?
Yeah.
3, 2, 1. Oh. 3, 2, 1.
I have to pick all that up now.